Next tonight, budget woes, teacher layoffs, and a reform effort in the Washington, D.C. schools. The NewsHour special correspondent for education, John Merrow, has been tracking the challenges facing that school system for the past 2 years. Here's his latest update.
1, 2, 3, 4, escort rewrite out the door. 1, 2, 3, 4.
On a Thursday morning in October, 6 weeks into the school year, members of Washington, D.C.'s teachers union gathered to send a message.
We will not let anyone intimidate us in our schools. We will not be controlled by fear.
Their message was for D.C. Schools Chancellor Michelle Rhee, who had unexpectedly laid off 229 teachers to close a budget shortfall.
We have been totally disrespected. We have been treated like we don't matter.
Can't take no more. Can't take no more.
I was laid off on Friday. On Saturday, I look online on the newspaper, Washington Post, and it's all about, oh, well, it's good we got rid of the incompetent, lazy teachers who don't plan lessons.
The city council took up the issue weeks later, alleging that Rhee overstepped her authority in making the layoffs and engineered the budget shortfall in order to get rid of teachers she didn't want.
By your own admission, you have stated on the record that you made an administrative decision regardless of the law and the process that is in front of you to follow.
My understanding is that I do have the authority as the agency head to make the decisions about moving budget from one place to another.
These people sitting out here lost their jobs because that's the decision you made.
Correct.
So what is the council supposed to do at that point?
But my understanding is that I do have the authority.
Before you move to your understanding, I'm talking about the law.
Michelle Rhee has been no stranger to controversy since she took control of D.C.'s public schools over 2 years ago. She's closed 25 schools, replaced almost half her principals, and battled the teachers union over a new contract. But some believe Rhee's latest actions pose a threat to her larger reform effort. When we spoke with Rhee back in July, she didn't see money trouble on the horizon. According to her, the budget was strong. Has the recession slowed you down?
You know, I am so fortunate in that the economy, as bad as it is, has not impacted DCPS in the way that it has other jurisdictions, which I think might make us the only school district in the country that is not making any cuts.
Yes, in the back.
Even as teachers across the country were losing jobs, Rhee hired 934 new teachers between spring and fall. That's double the number D.C. usually adds. But by fall, the picture had changed. In October, Rhee declared a budget shortfall of nearly $44 million, with nearly half coming from midsummer cuts by the city council. Then came the layoffs, called a reduction in force, or RIF, followed by an explosion of accusations.
I think that the way this RIF was conducted, there are going to be many losses.
George Parker is president of the teachers union.
I think to some degree there might have been an intentional effort to target some teachers to get rid of them. And the way you do that is that you go out and you hire additional teachers because somewhere down the line you intend to use those teachers to replace certain targeted teachers.
Fueling Parker's suspicions are public comments by Rhee and her team. Early last year, her head of professional development spoke with us about Washington's teachers.
50% don't have the right mindset, and there's a possibility that more of them don't have the content knowledge to do the job.
And Rhee has been open about her operating style since our first interview 2 years ago. Are you a rule breaker?
I think what I am is somebody who is focused on the end result that I think needs to happen. So if there are rules standing in the way of that, I will question those rules. I will bend those rules.
At an education conference 2 weeks after the layoffs, I asked Rhee and her boss, Mayor Adrian Fenty, about the controversy.
They're saying because you overhired, you have a surplus, and then you can, since you're not doing seniority, the principals can go and they can say, aha, We have to RIF some people I've always wanted to get rid of.
In DC, we actually cannot do that. By law, we can only move a personnel action forward if there is a vacancy at a school level and then there is a budget to support.
Why are you
vacancy.
riffing then? You're riffing for budget reasons.
Yes, these are terminations that were a result of a budget reduction that we had to take. There are so many different.
Because Rhee tied the layoffs to budget pressures, she was not bound by the existing teacher's contract. To make the reduction in force, principals used a formula devised by Rhee, in which seniority counted for just 5%.
What typically happens in a school district is you know that 250 people have to go, it's last in, first out, right? And that's just the way that it goes. But that's not the way that it should go.
The model we're pushing towards is a model wherein the principal has the autonomy that you find in a charter school or a private school.
In order to change the system permanently, to alter the way principals hire and fire teachers, Rhee needs a new teacher's contract. But following the layoffs, 2 years of negotiations ground to a halt.
I haven't had time over the last 2 to 3 weeks to even focus on the contract. It's been focusing on this crisis situation.
The union is now suing to overturn the layoffs. Despite the standstill, Rhee has some backing on the city council, which has oversight of the schools.
I don't believe she overhired with the intent then of firing teachers that she didn't want there. I don't think that's what happened. And even if it did, so what? Michelle Rhee is in charge of the schools.
But even supporters like Jack Evans are worried.
And yet we are sitting here in a chamber where the tensions couldn't be higher. We cannot continue to have this kind of craziness.
You clearly don't trust a lot of the stakeholders. It's obvious the stakeholders don't trust your office. So how do we repair this?
I will fully do my part to the extent that people have suggestions about how we move forward. Some of the difficult decisions that we make will indeed cause some people to be unhappy. But we know we have to push forward on those decisions because they are right for schools and kids.
Rhee remains confident that in the long run, results will prove her right. 2 weeks after the layoffs, math scores on the prestigious test known as the nation's report card were released. Although DC's scores remain the lowest in the nation, only DC and 4 states saw gains at both levels tested, 4th and 8th grades.
You can listen to podcast interviews with the head of the union and 4 teachers who were laid off. That's on Learning Matters, on the Learning Matters website. You can find a link from ours, which is, of course, newshour.pbs.org.